Hello, and welcome to Victory Road's World Cup of Pokemon, sponsored by Elgato, GG Tour, and Metafi, and cast for today by myself, Hayden McTavish, and Evan Wang. How are you feeling today, Evan?
Hi Hayden, I'm feeling good, and we are jumping in straight away to top 8 right now. All players are playing for the money. The top four the top four teams coming out from World Cup will be able to earn some prize money. So this is definitely a match that all countries are fighting super hard for, because it's like you go hard, you go all in or you go home. So last week we just concluded the top 16 matches, and there were a lot of interesting upsets, as some of you must have seen from our Victory Road Twitter.
Yes, a ton of interesting upsets. There may be more this week, and make sure that you check out our Twitter to keep track of when different match results are reported and we finalize the next bracket. There's also the YouTube channel where you can see some of those matches from last week, get more of the story of some of those upsets and some of those convincing wins from teams that we know are spectacular. If you missed anything, you can check it out there. You're also, of course, aware of the Twitch channel if you're watching it on there. Make sure that you check this regularly to make sure that you can catch if there's any more streams. We'll be doing every day of the weekend this weekend. Make sure you catch all of those. And there's also the Discord for Victory Road, which you should make sure to check out to be kept up to date about all of this. And of course, the WorldCupVGC.com website has all the information you need. If you aren't sure where to go, that's a great one-stop hub to get a sense of all of the action this weekend.
Yep, so all of the matches last week were really tight, and they were like really well played, very high quality matches. So you will always be able to see those VODs in YouTube, so remember to check those out. And now we're gonna give some a little breakdown on what actually happened in those matches, because on paper you can see scores like 6-1, 5-2. They do seem pretty convincing, but there are also matches. There are 4 of these matchups that went 4-3. Some of them actually do not look that like they look close, but they were won really early in the week. From France and from Thailand, that was very impressive. They clocked 4 wins pretty early. But the players do have that sportsmanship to play all the matches out to finish up with 4-3.
Yeah, France and Thailand both pulling off a bit of an upset. Japan and Italy, incredibly formidable countries. And they did only sort of get that 4-3, Italy and Japan proving that they really do know what they're doing, and it was just the tightest loss. But those teams did win right away. And so there were these decisive wins early on in the week from France and Thailand that then sort of turned into a 4-3. But it was really exciting to see these countries have really pulled out all the stops to make sure that they can make it onto that bracket. On the other side... Oh, go ahead.
Some quick notes would be that South Korea, United States, and Thailand were in this position before last time. So currently, the best record of a team so far would be South Korea, that achieved top 4 last year, whereas United States and Thailand, they ended their run at top 8. So interested to see whether they can go a bit further. So Hayden, why don't you bring us through like the scores from the left side of the bracket?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting at the top, Canada beat Taiwan 5-2. Then going down, India beat Singapore 4-3. Australia beat Peru, again, a really tight match, 4-3. Both of those last two came down to the very last game, and things still weren't decided. Super close. Some of them went to game 3. Hearts on the line there. We had South Korea convincingly defeating Brazil 6-1, making it into the top 8, the most accomplished team so far based on last year's performances. And then on the top and bottom from the right, the United States won 6-1, and Poland beat Argentina 5-2.
Yeah, so really commanding performances from South Korea and the United States. The United States are now sitting at 4 wins, 0 ties, 0 losses, right? Like really trying to dominate through from group stage and bring their performance forward to top 6, to the top 8 right now. So let's go through the players that we are featuring today. We will have 4 matches to bring to you guys back at home, and for tomorrow we will have 5, and on Sunday we will have 5. So you'll see so many like familiar countries all over the place because we're only down to just 8 teams, and we're going to feature as many matches as we can. So at the start here, we have Thailand versus Poland on the right side of the bracket. We have Papon versus Aleksandra, and then 2 matches back to back from Canada versus India. I find these matches exciting because you get to see like scores climb immediately, like increase by 2 points, or like make it a 1-1 and make it very even. So this is Canada versus India. Finally, we will have a match from 2 Worlds players, Emilio Forbes and Hippolyte Bernard. So these are like really strong players going up against each other in this kind of setting that we are providing you guys.
We've often had weeks where we have these really big name players playing the last of the stream, and I'm really excited for this one. Emilio Forbes and Hippolyte, both incredible players, and so definitely stick around for the full broadcast because you're going to want to catch that. And of course, as Evan said, I think it's going to be really exciting to see so much of the decisions about whether Canada or India wins are going to be decided today on stream. And that's going to be really exciting to be able to follow, not just showing a single snapshot into a matchup, but showing a whole lot of it.
Yeah, we did try to like arrange for players to provide like the recording for as many games as possible. So we are trying our best to do 3 games from each matchup. So you get to see all of the action here in our stream. So let's jump in and narrow down to the first matchup, which is Thailand versus Poland. Both countries had a pretty successful run through the group stage and managed to beat their adversaries, being on like the second seed, both being able to beat the first seed from the opposite side of groups and be able to jump into top 8. For Thailand, it is their second time. Thailand lost to Korea last time in top 8, whereas for Poland, it would be their first time in top 16, and moving on to top 8 is definitely an achievement because they've been tearing through the qualifier stage and the group stage. So only 1 match has been played right now between Thailand and Poland.
Yeah, just 1 match. So Thailand up, but that doesn't mean too much just yet. This next match could either really cement Thailand's lead or bring Poland and Thailand right back up neck and neck for the next 5 games we're going to be playing. Really interesting to see the variety chosen from Thailand's side with the Gyarados, Ferrothorn, Dialga team. You love to see it, and it's really cool for teams to sort of open and establish, hey, you really have to worry about counter teams from us, you really have to worry about unconventional sets. And I think that's going to be a really interesting tone to set.
Thailand, like spoiler alert, are running teams that are very special that came out from the World Championships. So you will see Papon's team that we are featuring later. But this team on the screen here, used by Panya Wood on the second slot, this is the team like popularized by David Kutesh, who had a very good run in day 1 of Worlds all the way to top cut. And then Diana Bros would be using Eduardo's composition that won Worlds. So interesting to see like the meta game shift this way after Worlds has happened, and everyone like kind of giving these teams their last hurrah and trying them out before like we don't have to touch Dynamax or like Series 12 ever again.
This is one of my favorite times in the format, when we have established all of these really brilliant ideas from the World Championships. Players really pulled out all the stops, and we get to sort of explore what were these ideas that players did so well with in the World Championships, and how do they match up with each other? How do all kinds of players get to play them? And it's really fun to see that sort of trickle down and see new innovations in response to it and all of that.
So introducing the players, Papon Jirawattanakul from Thailand. We have featured him once already on stream this year. He was really excited to be able to get featured. So he also was a competitor last year, and he had a 3-3 record that was okay. And then this year's record was 2-2, and he used mainly Groudon teams. Both his wins were off of Rinja Sun, so it does seem like the Thailand players have been practicing a lot with popular team compositions. The moves and the items can be different, right? But they have been very confident with their wins so far in their run. And for Aleksandra's side, she also participated last year in Worlds. Notably, she is a day 1 Worlds competitor too, and her record right now is a very strong 5-2, and she has used a lot of a variety of restricted pairs, which shows her flexibility as a player.
Yeah, it's really awesome to see players with such strong records in World Cup. It's such a difficult format to be able to be consistent in, because as soon as you find something that works, everyone knows that you've used it and they can counter it. And so being able to navigate that well is such an impressive accomplishment for players. Very excited to see if Aleksandra continues with that winning streak of getting to a really impressive record, or is faced with Papon with some really good experience on Thailand's team, being able to pull things back to get that win.
So yeah, right now we will get to see the teams here. So this team is, if you guys watched the Day 1 World stream really early, so this should be familiar because this composition was used by Shoma Honami, the 2015 world champion, with this triple steel core with that Meowstic, and the Meowstic having very interesting prankster tags, and then paired with Landorus and Tornadus for Tailwind. And from Aleksandra's side, we have interesting Palkia and Groudon core, but this team doesn't have any stun abusers, so there's that regular like Incineroar and Grimmsnarl, and there's also Rillaboom and Thundurus.
Yeah, on paper, there's a lot of sort of conventions that it seems that Aleksandra's team is breaking, and I think it's really exciting to see sort of how that plays out. And then, of course, I mean, the Meowstic's breaking every convention, but it's exciting to see. I'm very curious how these teams are going to match up. I love the Dialga versus Palkia. I hope we get to see them Dynamax facing off against each other. It seems thematic. But I'm really interested to see, as you mentioned, the Groudon without really leveraging its Sun support for any of the other Pokemon, except maybe a stronger Flare Blitz from Incineroar, and Palkia without the normal supporting cast it has.
Yeah, so we're jumping in straight into the game. The Aleksandra's perspective at the top, and then we are playing the game from Papon's perspective here, and straight away we see the Dialga and the Palkia lead. So it's Dialga together with the Meowstic, which is really interesting. Both Prankster Mons are on the field here, as Aleksandra's side has Palkia versus the Grimmsnarl.
Yeah, interesting to see sort of Prankster support plus the Sinnoh restricted being the lead from both sides. Very interested to see sort of which Prankster Mon ends up supporting things a little bit better, and then whether Dialga is really able to leverage that advantage from having the super effective Dragon type attack against Palkia, whereas Palkia can Max Quake super effectively, but it can't get a lot of damage off with Dragon moves. I'm not sure how Aleksandra's going to adjust.
Yeah, so having forced to switch out the Grimmsnarl right away, I think Grimmsnarl could have like done some value with a Prankster move, but he's very aware of the max steel spike coming out from Dialga, and Dialga players tend to max their Dialga turn 1 just to get as much mileage off of the max moves as possible, as we do see Papon straight away Dynamaxing the Dialga. Then from Aleksandra's side, she managed to switch the Grimmsnarl into the Incin defensively, and let's see if the Palkia decides to max or go for some form of Trick Room, but instead goes for the Protect here.
Yeah, I really like that, just sort of making sure to limit the amount of damage that Dialga can do. Fake Out goes into that Incineroar, so it's nice to switch that out of the Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl wouldn't have done anything anyways. And the Steel Spike goes into Incineroar, so a brilliant switch, but that Palkia needing to protect just because of the threat of that Max Wormwind means that Papon is still getting a lot of damage out, whereas Aleksandra's really on the back foot just trying to burn those turns of Dynamax.
Yeah, I think that first turn of the Incineroar taking the hit is pretty successful, but this Life Orb Dialga just does so much damage. The stab Max Steel Spike did over 50% to an Incineroar. That's very crazy. And also, Aleksandra was aware that Papon has that option of a Fake Out coming out from the Meowstic, so that's a pretty good switch here. And we still don't know the speed interaction between these two Sinnoh restricteds, because Palkia might be even trained to be a bit faster, right? That could outspeed the Dialga and get some value off of it. But now this Dialga is just very oppressive on the field, right? Always being able to threaten with very strong Dynamax moves off of that Life Orb.
Absolutely, Dialga really setting the pace of this battle, but it looks like Aleksandra's coming in with a Dynamax of her own. Are we going to see the Sinnoh restricteds facing off? I'm so excited! Yeah, so that speed interaction you mentioned is going to be so crucial here. Can Palkia get off like a Max Quake to be able to boost the special defense and take hits better from Dialga? Or is it just going to be knocked out right away, potentially, with a Max Whirlwind? That's such a crucial question we're asking right now. Fake Out gets to come out into that Meowstic, make sure that it can't slow down the Palkia or do any light screen or anything. And the Whirlwind goes off first, so Palkia is faster. You get to finish off that Meowstic, but this Dialga is going to be able to do a whole lot in return.
Yeah, like Max Whirlwind would be the stat move coming out from Palkia, so it should like be able to take out the Meowstic. As we do see a Max Quake come in here, going into the Incineroar, and it reveals Incineroar's Shuka Berry. So unfortunately, Incineroar like doesn't have enough health, right? It should go down here. One more thing that was revealed would be Palkia's Life Orb. So both restricted from Sinnoh are like being the ones that are very, very offensive, both holding on to those life orbs there. And like Papon is just able to use the Dialga to take one, like both sides are able to take one KO at this second turn. So seems to be a pretty even board state here.
Yeah, it's nice that Palkia has an extra turn of Dynamax relative to that Dialga, but it is still pretty threatened by that Dialga. Like, Aleksandra made a brilliant call by not playing defensively with that Palkia on the turn that it wasn't targeted, sort of learning from the Protect on turn 1. But it is tough now because you've committed your Dynamax to this slot, and you are under such threat from that Dragon attack. Like, we could see a Max Guard from Palkia, but it's still a bit of a tough call when nothing else can really take a Dialga attack either. There's so many guesses about where it targets. And then the Zacian coming in just makes things a little bit more complicated. I can get a KO on that Grimmsnarl or do a whole lot of damage to Palkia even without Dynamax wearing off.
Yeah, Dialga's like typing is just so impressive here. Being only weak to fighting and ground just poses a little bit of a problem versus the Palkia. But I think a Max Whirlwind into the Dialga slot could be logical, just to drop the Zacian's attack. And notably, Papon's Prankstermon didn't do anything, right? The Meowstic just went down, and the Grimmsnarl is here being able to like come in and like put some value to the team. And here we do see the Prankster move come out, being Reflect, not opting to go for a speed control move against the Zacian. It would be logical if the Zacian didn't protect, but Papon plays defensive here, protects the Zacian, as we do see the Max Quake go into the Zacian, not being able to do enough damage. And Palkia is consistently moving before the Dialga, so that could be useful for Aleksandra. And let's see what the Dialga does in return.
Looks like it's going to be that Max Whirlwind, probably, definitely going into that Palkia. The Max Quake does let it survive, but unfortunately with that Zacian using Protect, it's now set up to outspeed and probably just KO that Palkia. I'm not sure about the calcs, but I think even with a Reflect, there's no way Palkia survives with just that much health from a Behemoth Blade. Dialga is done with its Dynamax, but it's really done its job here. It's taken a KO, it's brought the other Dynamax Pokemon really low, and it's still really threatening even without the Dynamax boost to its damage. It looks like it doesn't have a Steel move that is consistently going to not take away half of its health, but it can do a lot of damage to that Grimmsnarl, and that's pretty important.
Yeah, I think both the Dialga and the Zacian, like this double Steel core, would pose a lot of problems against the Grimmsnarl. But here, Grimmsnarl, in its last like dying breath, would be able to go for a speed control move. Let's see if it can pay out. And the Thunder Wave does come out and go into the Zacian. And if the Palkia consistently outspeeds the Dialga, it should be able to follow up and take another KO, which is quite important for Aleksandra. And then bringing the Pokemon count to 2-2 right on both sides.
Yeah, awesome to be able to leverage that Grimmsnarl. The flip side of not targeting that Grimmsnarl down with the Zacian is that it's still around to get that speed control. And now this Grimmsnarl is at +2 special defense and Reflect. That's a nice position to be in. I believe we saw this Dialga just going to finish off that Palkia, but it costs so much more to get rid of that Palkia when you're doing it with a Roar of Time than when you're doing it with a Max Whirlwind. This Dialga is just dead weight on the field for a little bit, and really all the burden rests on Papon's other slot to be able to do anything in this next turn.
Yeah, so it seems like the Landorus is the last Pokemon coming out from Papon, and I'm interested to see what Aleksandra brings. It could be something like a Rillaboom or even just the Groudon, right, just to bring both restricted. But a very strange move coming out from the Dialga, going for a Roar of Time, maybe like confident with the, like not very confident with the calcs with the other moves that we saw, like Earth Power and that Rock move, right? So trying to ensure the KO onto the Palkia, but at a cost of being just a sitting duck here in front of the Groudon that just switched in for Aleksandra.
Yeah, definitely a big cost for that Dialga to guarantee the KO on Palkia, but this Landorus is in great position. Sure, it's not a restricted ground type, and the ground type on the other side is, but getting that Intimidate off just does so much for this side. And, we do see Trick, though, from Grimmsnarl, so even though it only has Thunder Wave for speed control immediately, it does get to take away that Choice Band from the Landorus and give it a Lagging Tail, which is such a big deal.
Yeah, so being confident that Reflect is being set up, Aleksandra chooses to use the Groudon to go for bulk up here. So while removing both the Choice Band, right, from the Landorus, and also making it go into a spread move here, just does so little to both sides, and that really just paid dividends for Aleksandra there. We also see the reveal of Telepathy, because the pressure didn't drop all the way at the start, right, of the match, that this is a good combination opted by Papon for this team composition to make use of like a Choice Band Landorus to do as much damage as possible. But over here, like Groudon, instead of going for the damage, still leaves the Dialga pretty healthy. So if Dialga were to outspeed the Groudon, it could be quite dangerous if the Dialga will be able to do good damage.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation for this Grimmsnarl, because you could Thunder Wave the Dialga and make sure it doesn't get that attack off, but then your Choice Band locked into Thunder Wave, and that's not going to be very helpful for the rest of the game. And so there's definitely this calculation that Aleksandra needs to make of, is that worth doing? And she says it is. But now this Grimmsnarl is effectively useless for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think putting all the marbles into Groudon that sometimes can miss Precipice Blitz, but thankfully the Precipice Blitz goes into the Dialga. Did it get a Steel Spike boost? It did, right? So Dialga was able to comfortably survive it. So here comes the Earthquake going in, coming out from the Landorus in return, but yeah, just isn't able to take out do significant damage into the Groudon. So Aleksandra is really trusting in the Groudon endgame, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, such a decisive miss from that Dialga, that this Groudon doesn't have to take a really powerful Roar of Time, and it's still sitting quite high on health. I think Thunder Wave really does maximize your odds of something like that happening, because you've got that quarter chance for the Dialga just not to attack at all. But definitely that Steel Spike from earlier really means that Aleksandra's going to have to think about how threatening the Dialga is going to be always, not just when it's Dynamaxed. Sure, it has to only attack every other turn if it's using Roar of Time, but it still gets a bit of bulk boosts from all of its attacks, and that's going to be really tough to handle going forwards. It doesn't seem like there's a quick way to get rid of this Dialga from Aleksandra's side.
Yeah, I think that Roar of Time was really unfortunate, and both players aren't able to see, how much damage it actually does. And here comes another Precipice Blitz, and is able to connect into the Dialga and take it out. And now, Landorus, you just have to click Earthquake and kind of pray that you crit into the Groudon multiple times, because without that Choice Band, I think it's very difficult for these Landorus to do good damage.
Yeah, I mean, you do have Reflect wearing off, and that's something. You'll do a little more damage to this Groudon. Grimmsnarl can't set it back up. It's just going to be using Thunder Wave the rest of the game. But it is so tough to see. This is so many Earthquakes this Landorus has thrown out into that Groudon, and the leftovers are almost keeping pace with it. Bulk Up really a strong set to bring into this if you're able to avoid the attacks from Dialga. And Papon brought this Landorus that was really threatening, but it was just managed really well by Aleksandra. I think that this super powerful offensive threat is really not doing very much on the field right now.
Yeah, and it was also a good thing that the Grimmsnarl was able to survive on the raid, right? And always force the Earthquake to be spread damage. And with this lagging tail on the Landorus, it keeps moving last, right? So it isn't able to go for any rock slide flinches, since it's Landorus is naturally the faster mon, but instead Groudon is the one that has the chance to go for those rock slide flinches, since you can't click Precipice Blitz in this position. So it's a bonus if you get that flinch. One last thing to talk about the Groudon is that it also has the leftovers. So yeah, it's protecting itself here, right? To get more leftovers recovery, just to reduce any chances of any critical hits coming out from this finally single target Earthquake.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. You are able to make sure that even if there's a crit, Groudon can probably survive, and you've got the Rock Slide flinches to kind of cover the bases even more. It's got to be really satisfying to be able to try to Rock Slide flinch a Landorus instead of having it Rock Slide flinch you. That Grimmsnarl really putting in work with that trick there. And the flinch happened.
Yeah, so here it comes. But overall, just a lot of information like coming out from both sides, and like the trick lagging tail plus the thunder wave on the Grimstar was so important for Aleksandra, and switching it out turn one, way back at the first turn of the game was so strategic to just get rid, just sack the Incineroar, but make sure the Grimstar comes back safe and is able to put so much value for the team, right, and provide so much disruption on Papon's team.
Yeah, it really felt like Aleksandra made amazing calls about what Pokemon to preserve and when. Being able to... Grimsnarl just did exactly what it needed to do to make sure the Restricteds attacked first, almost all of the time when they were out and being offensive. And being able to preserve it against that fake-out Steel Spike was just such a wonderful play with that Incineroar switching in. And it was sort of a mid-ground play, you protected the Palkia, but it still worked so well. I really liked that identification of potential win conditions, as we see it paying off, and this Groudon gets to finish off that Landorus, and we're moving into Game 2 with a game win for Aleksandra.
Yeah, if you guys are keeping count, this Groudon is kinda lucky, because it's hit all the Precipice Blades that matter, and then it got like 2 flinches in a row off of the Rock Slide, and it didn't miss the Rock Slide at all, so I'm not sure if this luck will then get back to Aleksandra or not, but overall a really commanding way to win the game, just to keep the Grimmsnarl in the face of a team that has 3 Steel types, without fear. Yeah, the Grimmsnarl is able to just put on so much pressure just because of those annoying prankster moves. And unfortunately, the Zacian didn't go for the Grimmsnarl early, right? And didn't want to fall for that Gambit. And that's how Papon just lost the Zacian, a very important tool to try and finish out the end game and be a good answer towards the Groudon on Aleksandra's side.
It's interesting to think about how players adjust going into Game 2 here. We know that Papon could have taken down that Grimmsnarl. You just have to find a turn somewhere where it's safe to throw a Steel move into that slot. And it was really tough to do that because the first time you did that, Papon lost a lot of momentum because it just went into an Incineroar, and it didn't get that KO in the Grimmsnarl. And so Aleksandra played really well around that. But there's probably a lot that Papon can still do. Just throw a Behemoth Blade in that slot at some point, throw a Steel Spike into it, throw a Steel Beam into it. And so it's going to be tough to see how Aleksandra adjusts if she still wants to use that Grimmsnarl to good effect. But we're seeing a switch up and starting with that Incineroar this time around.
Yeah, one thing that we didn't really see in action was also the Meowstic, right? The first few moves being played smartly by Aleksandra just removed the Meowstic off of the field and any prankster shenanigans that it might bring. But here, instead of the Grimmsnarl lead, Aleksandra leads with Incineroar instead, as we do see these both Restricteds hitting the field again. So there could be some possibility that the Meowstic can provide more value for Papon this time, since Meowstic has the faster fake out.
Yeah, so Meowstic having a little bit more momentum for that Dialga side. It looks like we are seeing a Dynamax of that Palkia, I believe, being able to... Yeah, it's faster, and so it gets the Dynamax first. So we're going to see that Sinnoh restricted face-off again, and I think the big question is, does having this Meowstic around to be able to provide fake-out pressure that's faster than the Incineroar give Dialga the edge here, or is Palkia going to be able to do something really influential in this first turn to sort of weather the storm of these Max Worm wins and start really doing damage early on?
Yeah, from my end, I think going for the Dialga Max Worm win into the Incineroar is pretty safe because you have already revealed the Shuka Berry on the Incineroar, so the Max Quake wouldn't be able to take that clean KO, but still you need to be aware of the Palkia, right, being able to do a lot of damage into the Meowstic. So the Meowstic went for the faster fake out, Incineroar flinched, so it must have went for fake out as well. So here comes the Max Quake. Wow, just doing so much damage. Life Orb is just so useful for these two Pokemon here. And let's see what the Dialga chooses to do after this.
We're going to see Dialga take a big amount of damage with this Max Worm win. The question is which slot, and it is that Palkia. With the special defense boost, that's enough for a KO this time around. That's with the critical hit. All that luck that Aleksandra had in the first game with the Roar of Time missed, Dialga says, no, Papon, I'm going to make it up to you. Watch, this next Dragon move's going to be great. And that's such a huge change of probably Aleksandra's whole plan. You were trying to get that damage onto the Dialga, get those special defense boosts, and be able to use your Dynamax, and now you have to handle not having those other turns of Dynamax versus a Dialga that's still very much around and very much able to do a whole lot of damage.
Man, that's really unfortunate for Aleksandra though. Like, going for Max Quick is such a good move to boost both the special defenses of both the Palkia and the Incineroar, and it was really useful for the Palkia to be the faster restricted here and to be able to move first. But well, unfortunate that this creep had to go in and take out just that Dynamax option altogether. And now we're not even sure if like the Groudon will be able to outspeed this Dialga, to go for that KO first. And the Meowstic also provides like good prankster support, I think, in terms of screens or maybe even Yawn to disrupt the opponent. And this Dialga is just pretty like commanding on the field, I think.
Such a tough position for Aleksandra to be in relative to most of the positions that she was in Game 1. We do see Groudon just immediately switching out, maybe trying to bait a Max Wormwood into that slot, and instead a Grimmsnarl gets to come in. Yawn's going into that slot, and with the Dark typing, that doesn't affect, but the Max Wormwood goes into the Incineroar, and that's going to be not quite a KO, but still a whole lot of damage to take, which is really tough when you're already behind to be taking so much from that Dialga. It would have been so cool to see the double no effect moves into that Grimmsnarl, but instead Papon's targeting intelligently and getting that damage into that Incineroar, sort of being aware of the risk of double targeting there. We do get a parting shot off, so the Dialga's doing a bit less, and Groudon gets to come back in, but it's definitely tough to be in this situation with Groudon, with Dialga still having one more Dynamax attack, and then once Dynamax is done, it can still do more with that Roar of Time. We've seen it happen before.
Yeah, I think now would be like Grimmsnarl's opportunity to get that life orb away from the Dialga, but like you will be like taking a life orb in return, and then maybe even taking a Max Steel Spike. So Aleksandra has to think carefully here. But just now that Incineroar being able to survive because of the special defense boost off of Max Quick was really clutch to be able to get that like the parting shot off. But the move of choice here from the Grimmsnarl would be the Thunder Wave, but that follow up with the Precipice Blade isn't able to take out the Dialga, as the Dialga is able to go for that last max move and remove yet another Pokemon from Aleksandra's side. Man, that's just I think it's like a low roll. It's so unfortunate.
Yeah, that was so close. Dialga really putting in work for that side. Right from the start. That's so amazing. It gets the crit, it gets the Steel Spike off, and it's even with the Life Orb recoil manages to survive, just barely. Tough to tell if that was a roll or not, because I remember the Precipice Blades before not getting that KO, but I think it only had 100 hit points, so you might be right there. Definitely tough for Aleksandra to feel like you have the tools to handle that Dialga, but the rolls, how it was trained, how it was played, all worked against you to put yourself in this really tough position with only 2 Pokemon left.
Yeah, so Zacian and Incineroar both come in. Incineroar is able to get off that Intimidate and does provide fake out pressure here. Yeah, you already see the Meowstic reveal that Yawn, which is really disruptive, right? The Yawn should naturally go into the Groudon, so it's very difficult for Aleksandra to kind of squeeze her way out of this situation. But just unfortunate with all the max moves coming out from the Dialga earlier. It just puts so much impact, right? And having this like Dialga and Zacian core always being able to max the Dialga is just really interesting for this team composition, and just put so much pressure, as we can see here from how things have played out. And now like Zacian can even switch out, right, to reset that Intimidate drop, but still like Papon's side is just able to put so much pressure onto Aleksandra's side.
Yeah, as soon as you're able to get it down to just 2 Pokemon and have that option for Yawn, that's really threatening. But the Incineroar gets an awesome targeting with that fake out. And Groudon doing the only thing it can do to have a chance at getting back into this game, going for that bulk up. And Meowstic not able to Yawn this turn, so you've got a lot of pressure now, and just a perfect call of that Zacian protecting that gives Aleksandra a small sliver of a chance of getting back into this game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Trying to go for bulk up to survive the end game. You still don't know who that last Pokemon is on Papon's side, but if like the Yawn goes in and then Groudon is able to take as little sleep turns as possible, that could be useful, to stall out the end game, especially with those leftovers. So let's see the turn play out here as Yawn does go into the Groudon. That makes sense, and then Zacian is going to move next, go for the Behavior Flip to take out the Incineroar. And yeah, this is the moment of truth, whether like a +1 Groudon is able to do significant damage into the Zacian and the Meowstic through Reflect, since the Meowstic already set it up a few turns ago.
Precipice Blade's coming out. We'll see if it can get a crucial critical hit. That would be amazing, but it does not. Zacian is able to survive with that Reflect, even with the Groudon having a boosted attack. So Aleksandra might not even get to see that last Pokemon unless Papon chooses to reveal it, maybe wanting to reset the attack on that Zacian, give you a chance to sort of have that sleep activate and then attack with the Zacian, or move that Ferrothorn into good position. And then we're going to see Yastic sort of just burning a turn here, presumably.
Wow, but Zacian surviving the Precipice Blade's true Reflect, right? That's really impressive. And here comes like a Yawn coming out from the Meowstic. Meowstic has run out of moves because he only has Fake Out, Yawn, Reflect, and Light Screen. And Light Screen is not really needed here, as Aleksandra doesn't go for the KO. Like, doesn't want that free switch back into the Zacian and goes for yet another bulk up. That makes so much sense. But here, Papon reveals the last Pokemon to be Ferrothorn, and that's just so annoying to stall out endgames with. Against, I mean.
Yeah, if it had been that Landorus, maybe there's a world where this Groudon really can pull through with just getting enough bulk ups, because you just have to worry about those physical attacks. But seeing the moveset on that Ferrothorn with Leech Seed, it's going to be really tough for this Groudon to pull things out. Maybe if it wakes up really early and doesn't take too much damage from this Behemoth Blade, it has set up a bunch of defense, so that's an option. But there might be some way that it can do this, but it's really tough. Alexandra's making great calls to keep herself in this endgame, but there's just so many tools on Papon's side.
Yeah, so that was the first turn of Sleep, but Papon opts to not go for Leech Seed and take that advantage of Groudon having not to move this turn, right? And takes the opportunity to go for that Iron Defense, which could be more important in stalling out Groudon's very powerful moves, since Groudon is already at +2 right now. So here comes the Sacred Sword. It makes the most sense since it ignores the defense boost coming out from Groudon, but Groudon takes that second turn of Sleep, as Ferrothorn is now free to go for that Leech Seed and start chipping away at Groudon's health, kind of negating the leftovers that he has.
Yeah, Papon just needed to not get super unlucky there with the Sleep, and now things are looking really dire for Aleksandra. If you wake up right now and critical hit the Ferrothorn, you might have a chance through this game, but it's going to be really tough otherwise to be able to close this out. You're taking so much damage, and your only recovery is leftovers. Some really smart use of Sacred Sword here. One of the other situations where it's really useful to have over Play Rough, being able to attack through the 2 defense boosts. We do see it wake up. It does get depressive space, but it misses Ferrothorn, and so it definitely can't crit now, unfortunately. I'm getting that KO on Zacian, but now Meowstic can come back in and yawn again, and this poor Groudon taking so much damage from that Sacred Sword and from Leech Seed, and this Ferrothorn just setting itself up to survive anything that Groudon could possibly throw at it, unless there's a critical hit.
Yeah, it's interesting to see like Shoma kind of build this Leech Seed Iron Defense Ferrothorn set into the team, and we get to see it work out here in this end game of Game 2. The Meowstic here just comes in and easily has Fake Out pressure, so a Fake Out plus a Body Press should be able to clean up this Groudon. But it's interesting for Aleksandra to see, that Papon chooses to bring the Ferrothorn instead of the Landorus back in Game 1, and it kind of works out here. And like, you have to go back to the drawing board to to see if you have a better strategy against this, or just trust that the Palkia turn 1 max strategy works, since that max click was just so useful into the Dialga back in turn 1. Over here, Ferrothorn doesn't want to go for the body press and goes for yet another Iron Defense, and tries to stall the game out through all these Leech Seed, taking away hit points from the Groudon.
Yeah, sort of just making sure that you get that Iron Defense up to +6, really establishing that this Ferrothorn is a threat, maybe not wanting to reveal too many other moves. Yastic setting up a Reflect, so this Ferrothorn is going to take nothing from this Precipice Blades unless there's a critical hit. Although a crit here could still be really influential, we're seeing it doesn't happen. And that's, 22 damage from this +2 Groudon's Precipice Blades into this Ferrothorn, and the Body Press is going to come out, and Groudon is going to faint. So just a brilliant adjustment from Papon, seeing the Groudon set, realizing normally my Landorus would be great into Groudon, but against this particular Groudon, what I need is a bit of a bulkier style. I want to just Leech Seed so that the leftovers recovery isn't a problem. I want to Iron Defense so that it can't do damage to me instead of relying on Intimidate, which Groudon can just counteract with a couple of bulk ups. I really like that adjustment, and it really paid off.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's why the Ferrothorn came. And from Aleksandra's side, like I think these Pokemon that she brought makes a lot of sense. Like you don't have to bring the Rillaboom or the Thunderous because they seem to have a very bad matchup against the triple steel types from Papon's side. So yeah, it really comes down, it's nice to bring it to a game 3, but game 2 was really unlucky and kind of have to calm yourself down and see if you can tackle this in a different way. That Meowstic was pretty influential in the way it was able to use Yawn and use Reflect, but otherwise it's just sitting on the field and not doing damage. So being like always targeting the Meowstic's partner just helped a lot for Aleksandra. Just unfortunate that the Palkia on Aleksandra's side just wasn't able to put to do more, right? To put in more damage onto the opposing team.
Yeah, it's tough if you're Aleksandra to try to figure out how, if or how you want to adjust here. You know about that Ferrothorn, and maybe there's something you can do about that. Maybe you can preserve the Incineroar a little bit more. But it's tough when, I mean, it seems like Aleksandra had a great plan into this team, and it just didn't work out this time. And so I wonder if you just sort of say, hey, this is one of the advantages of a best of 3. If we play the exact same way, I'll be in a much better position. And so I'll just trust the fact that maybe Papon won't get lucky twice in a row. And we are seeing that Incineroar and Palkia once more, presumably against that Dialga and Meowstic, and it is. So able to sort of have that fake out pressure on the Meowstic, sort of force it to fake out the Incineroar back instead of going for some other move. And then this Palkia has the option to just repeat what it did last time, or if it wants to try to take down that Meowstic, you can always target the partner because Meowstic's not a direct threat, but maybe you want to get rid of that Yawn and Light Screen and Reflect threat because it was so useful. So a couple small decisions, and it looks like Papon has a huge adjustment here. But otherwise, Aleksandra is sort of in the same steady position that she was before.
Yeah, that first play of the Max Quake was really sound, and back in game 2, Papon didn't have a switch into Max Quake, but he brings it in now. So let's see if Aleksandra is aware of the Landorus switch in and still goes for that turn 1. Since I feel like the turn 1 Dynamax Palkia makes a lot of sense, since having that Max Quake boost just helps in both the Incineroar and the Palkia being able to survive, barring any critical hits like we saw in game 2. Like if the Dialga were to choose to go for the Max Whirlwind into the Incineroar, then Incineroar would be able to survive and probably get off a parting shot. So here we do see that turn 1 play, right, the Max of the Palkia, but does Aleksandra fall for it, right, or does the Palkia go for a more significant move, probably into the Meowstic?
It's a really decisive first turn. The fake out does go off on the Meowstic instead of Meowstic fake outing directly there. The Max Quake comes out and it is into that Landorus. If it had been that Meowstic, that would have been a huge lead for Aleksandra. Instead, we're seeing the Landorus out now against the Palkia and the Incineroar, and Palkia has now burned one turn of his Dynamax, whereas Dialga is just sitting pretty in the back ready to max later. And we've seen already that can do so much damage into Aleksandra's team unless she's able to get a lot of damage off now, get those Max Quake boosts. So a brilliant wasting of that first Dynamax turn, and getting Meowstic in position now without fake out pressure is such a big deal.
Wow, such a tough situation to be in, it's difficult to go for a Max Whirlwind from the Palkia. And now it just proves to be difficult going for the Max Quake. It's so difficult to predict the Landorus being a Pokemon in the back for Papon, since his strategy was to go for that Ferrothorn endgame. So we see the Yawn here, taking full advantage of the Meowstic still being on the field, right? As the Palkia returns with the Max Whirlwind and takes out the Meowstic, but to me it's a little too late.
Yeah, getting the Meowstic KO now is really tough because this Landorus can just U-turn back into something threatening, and I think trading Meowstic to be able to make sure that this Palkia either loses its third turn of Dynamax or isn't very useful afterwards because it falls asleep is just so strong. And we're seeing these powerful Steel types coming right back in on the field. now with this challenge that Aleksandra has to sort of make a calculation of, do I want to get one more attack off with Palkia, or do I need to just switch out and preserve my Palkia so that it doesn't fall asleep? We do get Parting Shot into that Zacian, or rather Aleksandra does, and that gives her a chance to pivot around. Something she could do is bring Grimmsnarl in and Thunder Wave the Palkia so it doesn't fall asleep. But definitely a tough position, and it's on Aleksandra to try to figure out what tools she can use to get out of it.
Yeah, like the best of 3, mind games here are just coming into effect. It's very impressive. Like Papon was able to use this idea to stall out max turns from the Palkia, and it's really working out. And now if you bring in the Dialga here, you're also like kind of playing mind games of whether the Palkia is going to go for that next Quake or not. And Palkia can't even go for max Wormwind right into the Zacian slot, so it's a very difficult choice to make. And like it's difficult to also go for max Geyser since the Groudon has to switch in for Aleksandra here. I think she made the choice to switch this Groudon in to pressure the Zacian, right? But like reducing the damage from max Geyser is a bit tough, to try to do.
Yeah, it's so tough because Palkia could do a lot of damage here if it goes for a max Quake, but it must be so scary to do that now that the Landorus is in the back and you don't want to max Quake once more into an immunity and then fall asleep. And so there's just so much pressure on Aleksandra to use this Palkia well, when it might be easier just to sort of switch it out and make sure that it doesn't fall asleep, make sure it doesn't get that guessing game wrong, and have it for later. But then if you do that, then this Dialga is so threatening for the whole rest of the game, and you might not be able to take it out easily at any future point.
Yeah, I feel like switching the Palkia out into the Incineroar might make sense, but no switches coming out from Aleksandra as we see the Papon click the Dynamax button on the Dialga here. The Zacian notably is at like neutral attack, so might not be able to do enough damage into the Groudon. So having the Groudon to move and do significant damage might be important. And I just want to see like the Palkia going for the max Wormwind into the Dialga. I think it makes the most sense. So here comes the Behemoth Blade. Let's look at the damage. It isn't enough to bring Groudon down to half, so that's a really bulky Groudon here. But wow, Aleksandra actually goes for the max Quake into the Dialga, not wanting to call the bluff.
What a brilliant call there, because now the Dialga's low even on its first turn of Dynamax, and you get that special defense that might be enough to keep Groudon around this turn, even with something like a max Wormwind into that slot or a max Steel Spike. The big question is, can Groudon... did it survive there, or did it just faint? I can't tell.
Yeah,
this is going to matter so much.
No.
Aleksandra doing everything she could to set up this Groudon to be able to potentially survive this attack from the Dialga, but that Behemoth Blade chip from Papon really just putting in a lot of work, making sure that even with a special defense boost, Dialga's doing what it can do best, which is a whole lot of damage right away. If Groudon had managed to survive and gotten off that Precipice Blades, I think that would have been a double KO, and that just would have been the game for Aleksandra. But without surviving, with that wonderful Behemoth Blade targeting, that's really tough for Aleksandra, and she's going to be in a really tough spot to try to pull this out with a sleeping Palkia and 2 turns of Dynamax from the Dialga.
This max Steel Spike coming out from the Dialga might have made the difference, because it's a max Steel Spike that came out of Steel Beam, right? Papon didn't reveal the Steel move all throughout Game 1 and Games 1 and 2. So this could have made the difference to just do that extra chip into a very bulky Groudon. And the Groudon is not, safe behind screens, so that's just really unfortunate. I think Aleksandra's play was really good, right? To sacrifice Palkia going to sleep and boost the Groudon, but just unfortunate that it didn't play out that way. So here comes the Grimmsnarl having to face up, finally into both the Steel types. It's just such a tough decision, and I think the best thing to do now would be to go for those Thunder Wave paralysis and try to hope that luck is on your side.
Yeah, definitely a huge round of applause to Papon for getting that targeting right and going for the things that wound up winning him that game with the Behemoth Blade and the Steel Spike, or very nearly. We do see Incineroar getting to pivot in. Things aren't quite over yet. You get some Intimidate off, and where there's a Thunder Wave, there's a way. But Papon definitely has the advantage here and is going to be able to press it pretty well, presumably.
Yeah, I feel like you need a lot of paralysis here, because the Incineroar switched in for a Palkia that did not take its first sleep turn. So when Palkia comes in, it still has to take the brunt of all the attacks coming out from both sides. Wow, that's just impressive. That's a -1 Zacian, Behemoth Blade into Grimmsnarl, still able to survive, right? And here comes the Wormwind, which is the logical choice. Taking out the Incineroar. Aleksandra probably opting to sack it here, but yeah, the Palkia still has to take that one turn of sleep when it comes back in.
Yeah, definitely tough. This Incineroar coming in keeps that Grimmsnarl around so it can paralyze everything, which is really useful. And maybe if this Palkia wakes up right away and the Dialga is fully paralyzed, Aleksandra does have a way back in. I'm loving the way she's playing to sort of try to maximize her odds here. That was a brilliant Incineroar switch in. But Zacian just switching out, we see from Papon's side, it's going to be really tough to be able to call that and get the paralyses you need to be able to have an angle into this game.
Yeah, like the adjustment of not bringing Ferrothorn and bringing the Landorus instead just paid dividends in this deciding game 3. So really props to Papon for just thinking of that idea and trusting that like the Palkia logically has to kind of Dynamax to match the Dialga's Dynamax, but just playing things in a whole different way and having so much mileage out of it and kind of forcing the Palkia to fall prey into Meowstic's yawn, right? So it's all being played into full effect here, and yeah, Palkia has to take that turn of sleep. So here comes the Max Wormwind. It's just so strong, like Dialga with the Life Orb just proving to be a menace on the field here.
Yeah, at this point, there is no way this Grimmsnarl is going to be able to pull back the game. This Landorus is going to be able to just start firing off Earthquakes. The Grimmsnarl is really low. So that's probably going to be the set, but just such brilliant play, as you mentioned, being able to think of, oh, this Max Quake was really tough. I do want to bring an Earthquake, a ground immunity in this Landorus now. But also, Papon did such a brilliant job of really establishing how much of a threat Ferrothorn was and how much Aleksandra needed to respect it. Being able to go for all of those iron defenses, even if it wasn't always, on paper, the optimal way to win game 2, it really established this, hey, look, if I set Reflect and get their +6 defense on Ferrothorn, you can't do anything to it ever. And I think it's so scary as a player to see that. Excuse me. So scary as a player to see that and not know how you can handle that Ferrothorn. Like, you really would just have to have Incineroar the whole rest of the game. And I really like the way Papon established, like, I'm going to create the most stressful situation possible with this Ferrothorn. You really can't do anything to it, and you have to assume I have it. And then immediately, first turn of the next game, leveraging the fact that Landorus actually came for a totally different game plan. That was just such brilliant best-of-3 play, and really hats off to Papon for coming up with that.
Yeah, like Landorus kind of also gives that additional intimidate pressure. So just overall, kind of cool to see how it went to game 3 and how Papon was just able to use that Landorus to full effect. Like, you might think a choice band just restricts the Landorus to what it does and it can easily get tricked away, but just the way it turns out, the way he adjusted for game 3 was just amazing to see. We have some information coming in from the staff here that Akarapon from Thailand actually beat Maciek from Poland, who was actually 5-0 and broke Maciek's winning streak, but that actually brings, including this game, the score from Thailand to Poland up to 3-0. So right now, Thailand's already at match point and Poland needs to win every game from here on out. This is such a tough situation to be in. So notably, Thailand also won Japan 4-0 last week, and Japan, with the players having sportsmanship to play all the games out, managed to bring it back to a 4-3. And Thailand is just being able to be in this position again, and that's amazing to see them just tear through the top card bracket so convincingly, right?
Yeah, just incredible play from Thailand. To pull that off at first with Japan, 4-0 against them is incredible, and then to be able to bring yourself back to that position where it's like, okay, we have 4 players left. One of them needs to win a game, and we know that we can have this momentum where we're really leveraging starting 3-0. That's so much pressure on Poland as well to be able to come back from this, and they're definitely capable of it, but that must be so tough to start out 0-3 against such a strong team that you know is capable of taking wins quickly. So very excited to see the rest of that, but very, very cool to be able to see that Thailand just pulling off, again, potentially a 4-0 sweep, possibly.
Yeah, they're just so amazing in these draft league formats this year. So up next, we will have a double header of Canada versus India, and Connor will be joining us in the caster's desk. So this has been the Victory Road World Cup of Pokemon VGC, sponsored by Elgato, GG Tour, and MetaFee. So don't go away. We have more matches coming up next.